Everybody be quiet.
1, 2.
Recording live from the E. Haley Memorial Studios, straight out of Elmont, Ontario, it's time for This Deathclock Has 60 Minutes, your one and only weekly Wargamergirl news broadcast. It's 8 p.m. Wednesday night, the beers are cold, the news is fresh, and the death clock starts now.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Death Clock. It's Wednesday night once again, ladies and gentlemen. And I can say that, like, legitimately now, ladies and gentlemen. I always say it anyway, just as a habit from hosting. But this is actually really, really cool. We're actually joined by Miranda and Dan from Wargamergirl, probably the two people that it's probably the first videos you see when you start playing War Machine and
you go searching for battle reports.
Yep.
And Wargamergirl stuff just pops right to the top. It's amazing.
Tends to be the way it goes. So I want to say hello, guys. Say hello to the Mies.
Hello. Thanks for having us. So Dan isn't technically my employee. I just treat him like one.
That's okay. George treats us like employees, and we're still waiting to get paid.
Yeah, but the healthcare's okay.
Really? It is?
Well, Dan, don't get any ideas.
That's because we're Canadian and it's free.
Yup.
Okay, so the things we're going to talk about tonight on the cast is we're going to talk, we're going to focus on how to make battle reports, because I think there's a lot of excitement with CID out now that everybody has been busting out battle reports, particularly for the CID, but that also means in the greater world, there's a lot more battle reports going out, people coming up with blogs. And these really are the people that do, in my humble opinion, are the people that do it the best.
Yeah, and I know it's heresy, but in the non-War Machine world, we've got a lot of exciting new releases right now. You know, Blood Bowl's just been re-released, 8th edition's been re-released, there's a bunch of new Infinity stuff coming out. So a lot of the stuff, even if you're not normally a War Machine player, maybe somebody has directed you to this cast, because a lot of the stuff we're going to say about how to make battle reports applies to just about any war game. Now, you may have to sit through some War Machine news, but hopefully we'll have something good for you later.
Somebody refers you to something. So before we get started, I want Miranda and Dan, for anybody who doesn't know you guys, why don't you take a second, introduce yourselves, and tell us a bit about how Wargamergirl got started.
All right. I'll go first. So I'd played a bit of Mark 1 and got really bored with it and didn't touch games again. Didn't touch the game again for a while until I had moved and Mark 2 had come out. And when I was trying to learn about it, I ended up looking it up on YouTube. And of course, YouTube being 2012, 2011. Well, actually 2011, I guess, when I was getting back into it. And either way, there were people doing battle reports, and many wargaming had been doing them. And as a person who is personally a film enthusiast, I saw it and thought this was definitely something I could do, and kind of grew from there. So my channel has typically focused around battle reports. Lately, there's I've been doing some other content, just some opinion pieces. Branched a little bit into video games. I'm doing some reviews for some other people as well. So I'm kind of just exploring a whole bunch of other stuff right now, but typically my channel found its footing on doing highly cinematic battle reports, and they were, painstaking amounts of hours put into them, where I could tell anybody how I did them, and most of the time people would go, "Oh no, I have a life." So yeah, on the bright side, I got really good at editing, and I had some animations going on my battle reports for a while, but it didn't make sense to drag somebody else into it that much, so I kind of did away with that, and now just do slightly more streamlined cinematic battle reports for War Machine. I've done some Space Hulk, hoping to get some Shadow War Armageddon in, and possibly 8th edition.
And Dan, how did you get dragged into this crap?
Well, I mini wargaming, really. Dave and Matt from mini wargaming, they were like childhood family friends. Like, I grew up with them. I'm really good friends with Matt's younger brother. My older brother was best friends with Dave for a long time. So it was just they were just people that I knew, and I've always been interested in the wargaming aspect, but I never really had friends to play with. And when they were like, "We're starting this thing and we want as many people to play as possible," I was like, "All right, I'm in." Just like, yes. It's finally an excuse to spend an exorbitant amount of money on plastic and metal.
We don't know what you're talking about at all.
And if any of our wives are watching, they're all quite inexpensive.
Five
It's okay.
to 10 cents a model. It's great.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all it costs to make.
Most fun you can have for $5.
Haha, my wife also plays. She
Yeah.
knows how much I spend on this stuff.
Yeah,
Mostly I played 40K until I was introduced to War Machine, and I instantly fell in love with it. And then just from making battle reports, like 3-4 times a week, I just saw Miranda's stuff pop up, and I was like, wow, this is super high quality, and I was just interested in meeting her, and I was lucky enough too, and then we became really good friends, and we've been producing stuff together, hanging out ever since.
All right, so because this is a news show, we do have to talk a bit about the news. And the first piece of news I want to talk about is we here at Moose Machine are going to be starting up something a little new for the next, at least for the next few months.
I didn't know that. You didn't tell me that.
You were part of the chat when we talked about it.
I wasn't paying attention.
What's happened is we find that during the news report, we've been losing about half an hour per show to CID talk. And the problem with CID talk is that in a week from now,
It's fake rules.
it's fake rules. Actually, it's pretty much fake rules when we talk about it.
Yeah.
a week from now, it might actually be real rules for all we know.
So what we're going to do from now on is we're going to, from starting next week and going on, we're going to start the podcast a little bit early, the way we do already, but we'll talk about the CID stuff at that point. We'll break that out as a separate podcast. So that's the first piece of news. Second piece of news is because there was some big cons going down in the States, we got to see a lot more of the Grimkin models in the wild in the last week.
Just to be clear, it wasn't actually that a con. There was a retail show.
Okay, there was a retail show, which meant that there was a lot more Grimkin models in the wild.
Well, it's because this is the box that you want to sell to everybody in 2 to 6 weeks. Come and take a look at it now and put in your order.
Have you guys had a chance, you guys over there, Dan and Wargamergirl, have you guys had a chance to take a look at some of the Grimkin stuff that's been going on? Is there any excitement going on there for you guys?
Hey, Old Witch 2. I mean, how can you go wrong?
Wait, do you get Old Witch 3 though as Kador, or is it Old Witch 2?
I think it's. I don't know if do they count it as 2 and 3? Because there's still just 2, and then she just works for 2 different factions.
Yeah, no, I think they've actually got different cards for the Grimkin and
Old
Kador
Witch
one.
3 is Kador, I think.
They are different rules because she's a focus mechanic in War Machine, but then because Grimkin's Horde, she's going to be a Fury. So I guess there's that.
Yeah, totally
in
different
the
cards.
CID, at least it refers to her as Old Witch 2 and Old Witch 3.
I'm never gonna get that right. She's the big witch because she's on 120 millimeter base.
But that model, so gorgeous. I wants it.
Yeah.
The other thing that came out this week was we got to see there was a sort of, it was funny because Will was on doing a podcast or a live cast about Company of Iron, and then at the end of it found out that there was absolutely zero sanctions for him to talk about all the stuff that he talked about and basically had to leave. So there's been a lot of details about Company of Iron leaked, which or quote unquote, or under quotes, leaked. But most likely totally but Company of Iron, guys, we've talked about this a bit in the last cast. I think
excited.
that made me even more excited. I'm looking forward to some really small skirmish stuff.
My wife is super excited for it. She doesn't have the attention span for a 75 point, large games. So she's really looking forward to, and the back and forth.
Yeah.
The back and forth mechanic is super awesome for engaging people who might not be into the wait 20 minutes for your opponent to finish their turn kind of play.
And probably for people who don't want to paint 800 models.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Or don't have the time to paint 800
I am
models.
so excited to have the War Machine version of Necromunda or, more time. I just think that's so awesome. And we're getting some new models in it. And I think that is the place where people are going to start doing custom models, I think.
That'd be cool.
Because I think that would be the place where if you want to produce a character in a small run that can be played with this system. War Machine, you can't really do that because 90% of the time you're going to want to play in sort of a steamroller or something like that, where those type of
but this
models
one,
aren't good.
This one you could.
This one is sort of more the beer and pretzel version of War Machine, and I can't wait for that. That sounds amazing.
So one of the things I thought we'd sort of throw over to you guys, Miranda and Dan, is tell us a bit. Well, Miranda specifically, because I know you're sort of the brains behind this operation. Tell us a bit about Valhalla. When is that coming up, and how does that work?
Yeah, it's a Kickstarted event, so everything's sort of in place if it's going to fund at all, which it did meet funding really successfully this year. It's October 7th through the 12th, about an hour south of Salt Lake City and they qualify it funny, it's the largest log cabin in North America, because apparently there are bigger ones. This thing's like 26,000 square feet, so it's this big, like, week-long
That's a lot of log cabin
commune thing.
Wow.
Fully catered meals. Same girl as we had last year. She's super awesome. Danielle, who catered our event last year, also a roller derby girl. For whatever reason, like, when I meet girls around the wargaming community, they're so into roller derby. I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something. But either way, she's a really good caterer. So it's 3 square meals a day plus constant snacks. You're in this gorgeous log cabin with like a pool and a hot tub and sauna. And then we've got this huge, they call it the Grand Ballroom. And there's a bunch of just gaming tables, and it's free play all the time. So it's 24 hours if you can stay up that long. And I've got some people coming in with higher end tables this year. And we're going to have a 40K campaign so far. We'll probably have some Shadow War getting played, maybe Company of Iron if people are interested in the skirmish, more time, just a bunch of games that get played. It's just this amazing vacation event that, it's Valhalla. You wake up, you die in battle, you wake up the next morning and do it again. You're well fed the whole time.
Sweet. When is that coming up again?
October 7th through the 12th.
Perfect.
So the event's already booked out, though.
Awesome.
Oh, wow.
So get in on it next year is what we're saying.
Get in on it next year, or you can always contact me if you want to get on the waiting list in case somebody has to drop. Generally, maybe something happens, but for the most part, I have people coming in from like all over the world for this event. It's just so super cool. But if you're in Salt Lake City, there is the Gladiator Games Con. They have a convention, a War Machine Con happening that same weekend. So maybe you'll be around.
Julio. Okay, the next thing we wanted to talk about was there was a really great article written about theme forces this week. There's been a lot of scrutiny towards theme forces skewing the game. A lot of people, depending on which faction you play, I find it's fairly specific. And
you mean like Retribution?
Yeah. So what's happening is there's a large portion of the community that doesn't want to play in theme forces. And a large portion of the community that's like, yeah, but you kind of have to stay competitive. And that has created a bit of a rift. There was a great article that came out this week sort of saying, well, statistically, that's not exactly true. But here's some reasons why it is, and maybe PP has wanted to push it that direction. Jason, I'm going to send the con out to you first, because you're not necessarily against theme forces.
No.
But
you're against one.
Not as a whole.
Yeah.
Not as a whole. I love the idea of theme forces. I love the idea of getting really cool fluff bonuses for taking certain models that happen to fit within a theme. What I don't like is the free models.
Right. So you're feeling that the free models skew the game just too much.
Yeah, that's basically how I feel.
Do you find that it's not? Do you feel it's not balanced though in the other direction? Because usually you get the free models, but the penalty of you have to take a bunch of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily take.
But you can still make really good lists out of that stuff that you don't always have to take.
Well, wouldn't you want to, like, when it's limiting your theme force? Wouldn't you want to be able to make a good army in that theme force?
Well, of course, that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of the theme force armies aren't that limited.
Oh, okay.
You're getting free models for a list that's not really that limited to start with. Of course, there's restrictions on that list, but it's a theme force.
So you'd like to see more restrictions?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't want to see
you
more
want to see
restrictions.
them get rid of the free points.
Yeah, and even tone it down a little. Like,
maybe need 40 points of units to get.
Well, there's worse
solo
offenders than. Like Oracles comes to mind, getting 20 free points basically for a bunch of beasts, which Legion, and I'm a Legion player, getting 20 free points for a list where you're bringing a bunch of beasts is what Legion wants anyway. It unbalances against a list where your opponent is not playing a theme force and they're lacking 20 points. You're playing 95 points versus 75 points, and of course that's going to lead to an advantage for the other player.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know what the solution is. Let's send it over to Dan. Dan, and then we'll go over to Miranda too. Dan, how do you feel about theme forces? Do you feel like they're skewing the game at this point? Do we feel like we need to adjust them?
I hate them so much. They're so bad. It's like Mark III comes out and everyone's excited about doing all these crazy different lists and awesomeness, and it's like, and theme forces. And then the amount of different things being played goes to like this much things. And it's like there's like so many models that aren't talked about, aren't even played, they don't even exist in the game basically anymore because of these theme forces. And it's like, cool, theme forces, like, I mean, I guess they have a place some way, and I like fluff armies, I like playing fun armies, but it's like, ooh, minions, that's one of my factions. They get gators and pigs, and they can go together. But they kind of like, oh, they kind of changed the rules with throws, and they kind of got nerfed a bunch, and oh, okay. And then they're like, well, here's a theme force to make them better, and here's a theme force to make them better, but you can no longer mix them at all. And it's just like completely just destroyed the pig gator synergy, and I was just like, this feels awful. And it's just like, ugh. And then I love playing Signar, and they have tons of options, but it's just like, you just see the same list over and over again. I think Circle got hit really hard. One of my good buddies here, he plays really top tier War Machine. He quit the game entirely because he loves Circle so much, and with the tier list, he was just so cornered in the one area that he just wasn't having fun in the slightest, and completely quit War Machine and is playing Malifaux now. And I was like, wow, he was like so committed to War Machine, and it was just like, and it just sucks to feel that way and see that way. And I played like a fun list against an Oracle list, and I'm like, oh, I'm playing 20 points down. I'll still have fun, but I'm probably gonna lose because I'm not playing those like tiny amount of things that are good.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the question that, I mean, Miranda, do you have any feelings, thoughts on theme forces at this point?
Well, I had a question about the article. You said that somebody was saying the statistics weren't there to support an imbalance. What were the statistics?
There were no peer review.
No, they weren't like peer review or anything. No, it was just basically like.
I just wonder if they're talking about on a tournament level where you're talking about the top 5% of the entire player base saying that they still were able to be competitive. I think Dan's onto it in that it can really change the enjoyment of the game, especially in a game that you do sort of have to remember so many things your opponent can do in addition to what your own army can do. And to throw in another thing, like I got the Retribution like faction book the other day, and I was flipping through it, and it's like, oh, the Mage Hunter theme force, they all have grievous wounds. Have fun, trolls. Have fun, other theme forces that would give tough. And so it's just such a hard counter that I do think that you end up getting a very negative play experience. But maybe they're hoping for like CID to change it. I don't know that the theme forces were that thought out.
So I think we all have kind of the same opinion, and I think it was. I mean, to a degree, I think we all have the same opinion. But I want to throw it over to you, G, because you have. You've got probably the most experience in diving into how rules change and how things stand flux. How do we fix this? Like if we're giving suggestions to the guys, we're like, hey, the Will Hydra, we have some ideas on how to fix theme forces to up everybody's enjoyment. What is the fix?
I would say that there's two different things that we need to talk about here. One is how it is currently getting fixed, and the other is how we might want to see it fixed. The way it's currently getting fixed is they're throwing a bunch more theme forces into the mix. They've said that they want to see approximately 50% of armies playing theme forces at tournament level. I'm not talking like War Machine Weekend, but just like 50% when you go to a local tournament, half of the people are going to play theme forces. To get to that point, where everybody has like 3-4 viable theme forces, they're going to have to release like 6 to 8 theme forces per faction. Now, if you think about the amount of theme forces we have now compared to the amount we used to have, so every caster had a theme force, and then we got a bunch of extra theme forces. So often a caster have 2, maybe 3 theme forces. So right now we're at the very beginning of a new edition where we have like 2 theme forces per faction instead of maybe 12 theme forces per faction. So I think the way this is currently getting fixed is that they are going to add theme forces in for you to choose from, where if you feel that you are playing down so many points that you can't, you can't bounce back, then you just pick the theme force that goes with the type of models you want to play.
What if I don't want to pick a theme force?
Well, then you're making see, here's the thing: you're making the choice to say, I think I can do this better. Therefore, I'm going to play a smaller amount down. Well, no, I'm saying
what George is saying,
if we had the amount of theme forces that we used to, right? So if you had, instead of 2 theme forces to pick from, if you had 16, say,
right?
If you had 16 theme forces, the chances are your army that's in your head is probably part of one of these theme forces. And you can look at that and you can say to yourself, do I want to take the theme force and get these benefits and maybe lose these 2 or 3 models that I was thinking of putting in the list? Or do I want to take exactly what I want because I think I've got a synergy that can beat any of
So you're saying, and let me just going to cut you short so we don't get too lost on this topic, but you're saying the PP's current solution is, we'll just give more. Yeah. And then eventually we'll cover all the bases, so then everybody will have a theme force to choose from.
If they want it, yeah.
Now how do we want to change it?
How I would like to see them do to change this is limit free models to solos that are support models.
Okay.
Just straight up, because one of the problems at the beginning of Mark III was support bloat. You needed, because you lost Rupert, you needed the guy who makes that unit get Pathfinder, because before you just put Rupert in because he could give Pathfinder to anybody, right? So you just throw him on whoever. And it was just a straight up, this is strictly better than the guy that only gives, say, Doom Reaver's Pathfinder or something. I think that the way we fix it, I think a good way to change it would be to say all of those support models in theme are free or less expensive, and then you can choose to play in theme and get free points, but they're only models that are not directly doing work.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of other solutions too. You could give another fluff bonus instead of giving away free points.
Oh yeah,
we could do away with free points in general.
I feel that is sort of the broad stroke.
Right. Okay, everybody, let's drop this because really nobody really wants to listen to us talk about this all night. You tuned into this to learn how to make great battle reports.
True.
So let's start from the beginning and talk about how the typical. Wow, there's like a chaos going. Is there wrestling going upstairs in your house tonight? So
the big wrestling team is over.
So normally this is like the quietest house on the street, but okay. So let's talk about how you guys typically set up to shoot your battle reports. So let's hand it over to Dan and Miranda. Tell us what the typical setup is, the time that you put in before you even start shooting.
Well, Dan, I'm going to take a while, so you go first.
I don't put nearly as much as effort in my battle reports because my battle reports mostly focus on my lovely personality. Some people just love to see me be an idiot.
It's true.
So, I mean, I'm capitalizing on it. But anyways, no, lighting is super important. You have to, like, if you're at a friend's place, you got to bring your own lights and, like, set them up and make sure that your camera and, like, the white balance is correct. And there's all these tiny little things, and test the audio. And then you kind of have to talk with your opponent and kind of, like, realize, hey, this is not going to be a timed game. This is going to probably take an hour longer than a normal game to film this in this style. And just kind of like, and we're just here to have fun. It doesn't really matter who wins or loses. I mean, we're going to try to play against each other, but it's kind of like that. We're not going to be super exact on the inches and everything. It's just kind of like lay it all out there like, this is going to be a battle report. And that's kind of just what it is. And then you kind of get started. So it's not like super crazy amount of prep, but it's just I've made 100+ battle reports over the years, and video battle reports. And it's more just getting into the spirit of it, but there are some baseline kind of just make sure the lighting and sound are all good.
A little bit of follow up to that. Was it different doing it with mini wargaming where everything was sort of set up to start with, or I assume was set up to start with? I don't know.
So in mini wargaming, we just had dedicated rooms which had good lighting, and and it was like specifically designed that way. And then like there was like, we need this kind of terrain, and you look over and they're like, here's a room with like buckets and buckets full of terrain, and you're like, well, we need these models. And instead of going through your bags, it was just all on shelves in big boxes, and you're like, and I get and it was like super easy and streamlined. And then they made their like studios, different themes, and it's just a big office designed to film battle reports. And so it was a lot easier for sure, a lot less time consuming. But so it's a lot harder, like when you're like, oh, we can play in your basement. You go in your basement, it's this dungy little place, and you're like, ah, crap, how am I gonna make this? The last battle report I did, one of the light bulbs burnt out, and I only had one light, and it was just people were like, oh, the lighting isn't very good. I was like, I know, I tried. And so people are the general quality of battle reports is raising over the years, and if you don't keep up, people really notice.
Well, they got a lot of options now. I know War Machine Battle Reports really exploded. A lot of people got on board with that. I think one of the things you want to consider too is right out the gate is what your style is, because apparently it fell to 2, and there's the locked down camera style that so many people go with, which is pretty easy to prepare for because you just set that up and you can set all the like the white balance and your gain and everything ahead of time before anybody ever gets there. If you're going to shoot more like me, then you will need to make sure you've already got like your whole environment sorted out. And so the camera I have, it's a Sony NEX, and the lens on it's kind of slow, so we have to really blast light into it. My dining room is my dedicated gaming recording room, and so we created this rig with 6 of those those like Home Depot can light things, like workshop lights. They each have like 100 watt equivalent CFLs in them. So there's like 600 lights. Just call it the alien autopsy room, because there's just so much light. When you go in there, you're like, oh, that's really bright, but it makes it look just right on camera because, again, I put a macro lens on the camera too, so that you can get really, really close up to the model and see the detail. Because I figure for my stuff, it's going to be, if I'm going to go more cinematic, I really want to be showing off these panning shots of your army, and if you've got a nicely painted crew, I want to be able to see the detail of that. So for me, yeah, you have, before you even started, you have dedicated lighting setup. You've already picked the terrain. I really like those frontline gaming mats because no matter how close you get, the detail's really good on those. Mm-hmm. And just brings the game a little bit more to life. And I'm trying to think of what else really happens. You order food, because if you're going to record with me, it's probably a 3 to 4 hour commitment for a game. So.
We did have a question from an audience member. They wanted to know your feelings on 2D terrain versus 3D terrain for the style for battle reports and I guess in life. Really.
I hate 2D terrain. I don't like it, and the only reason it exists is because of the super precise, niggly measurements of War Machine. Yeah. And it's like a really good idea for that style. And so I guess if you're going to do the locked down camera and you want to be the highest tournament level, if you want to have that level of competitiveness in the game, then you'll want to have the flat terrain because every millimeter matters. If you want it to look pretty, then you want 3D terrain.
Dan?
But that's just my humble opinion.
I'm torn on it because like I have a lot of friends who just run events and run tournaments, and having one box of terrain and you kind of just throw it all the 2D terrain is like amazingly convenient. And then it's like everyone gets in, and like for events it's just like so much better. And yeah, for the War Machine game style, it just kind of fits. But at the same time, you're just kind of like looking at this like flat board, and you're like, why am I even here? Why don't I just play this on the computer?
I think that's kind of our feelings too.
Yeah, and just to throw out there too, like for other people in a game store coming by, and you go into the game store and you see other people playing stuff, and you always wander by and you're like, oh, what are you playing? What are you playing? Flat terrain does not make your game look very interesting. Yeah. And so I do think you actually can miss out on growing your meta if you just use that.
Yeah, I literally.
At the same time, you go back to playing on 3D terrain, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is awful.
Yeah, you can't balance a model
You know
on
what the answer to
anything.
that is? Cry more.
So
Be better.
We actually,
I want to take a couple seconds. Just I want to make sure that the people who are watching live know that if they have any questions for Miranda or Dan, just type it into the chat,
Yeah.
and we'll make sure it gets passed on to them. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube later on, or you're listening to the podcast
down in the doobly-doo.
yeah, give some comments. If you're on the Muse on Minis channel, just go onto the forums, and we'll make sure that those questions get to you guys. G, you had a question.
Well, it wasn't actually a question. I just wanted to relate a little story about 2D and 3D terrain. So we had a new member in our tiny little meta here. We're lucky enough to play in a pub on Monday nights. And for the longest time, I was just bringing flat terrain to the pub until I realized that one of our newer members had never seen 3D terrain, because we literally only played with 2D terrain because we could just put the terrain on our mats, roll up the mat and the terrain, and carry that with you, and it makes it super easy. But I realized he'd never seen a 3D hill.
True story. None of our terrain changed for like 6 months at one point. We
just unrolled the mats and played on it.
Oh, that looks good. Let's keep going.
Miranda's disgusted right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go. Let's start with. We've talked a bit about what makes a good battle report. Let's talk about the common mistakes people make when you've watched other people's battle reports. The mistakes you guys have made, the mistakes we've made. Everybody's made some mistakes when they first started. Let's go through what those are to kind of help out the bat report newbie.
It's really easy to forget rules when you play in slow motion, because if you're doing a battle report at all, you are playing in slow motion because you have to explain things and you have to understand that when you're editing this later, you need footage and you can't just have like half a second cuts, even though I do that sometimes. But so you need to make sure that you're playing deliberately enough, and when you are thinking about doing that, suddenly it can become really hard to remember your entire strategy, especially with the more models you have. Like, the larger the games, the higher the chance of error. So if you are looking to get into battle reports, definitely start off with a small point game, maybe even for War Machine, like a 35-point game, or not go over 50, just because it's going to be a lot to keep track of. And it's not really an experience to how to handle until you've seen it. So if you start small, then you can, get that all out of the way first.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's like so many rules get wrong that that Mini Wargaming had for a long time had like a segment of rules you got wrong, or and it was just like all the comments of what people think you get wrong and what you actually got wrong. So yeah, it's really hard playing in slow mo, and someone's like, okay, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this, and you're like, no, stop. You have to be like, so literally like, you can't move anything if I don't have the camera on. This is the point of this endeavor. And it's just kind of like you get in the groove of your turn and you just can't. You have to slow it down. And immediately your strategy is like,
It's true. That said, if you're doing the fixed camera angle or live games, you really don't worry about that because you do kind of just play as normal. So it's really more of if you're going to be cutting this footage that you're going to run into that issue.
Jason, sorry, finish what you're saying, Dan?
Oh, just another big mistake is pacing. Like, people are like, oh, I'll just film a bunch of stuff and it's a battle report. You're like, meh. It can be really boring really, really easily, even if it's like the most interesting people. Like, I know I could take Miranda's footage and make it the most boring battle report ever. And I know Miranda can take my footage and make it the most boring battle report ever. It's proper editing. You have to spend just as much time after the camera, or, if the Mini Wargaming style is like you're editing with the camera starting and stopping, and just you have to be really conscious of that, and just kind of like the pacing of the comments, and you can't have a lot of dead time.
Make sure that the record button's getting hit if you're doing in Mini Wargaming style of editing, because that can get real. You can really quickly lose track of that, and you'll be like, we need to repeat turn 3. Can we just
reverse it back?
So, Jason, I want to send this over to you because you and I have done a bunch of written battle reports.
Yeah.
For written battle reports is a bit of a different procedure to a certain degree.
Yeah, you have to have a good memory.
You have to have a good memory because
Or
we got to
a
do
memory.
because you
Or
have
a
to
memory,
we
yeah.
just have a bunch of photos afterwards.
What?
There's a photo of
Also,
you.
play on a clock because when that game goes like 3 hours,
Well, but we can't because we're also have to stop the photograph every half
pause
hour.
the clock. You
Oh.
pause the
Ooh,
Hey, wait,
brilliant.
I know. I thought about that later.
I heard that in 2017 you weren't allowed to pause the clock.
But we can get our own judge.
So what's the first time you and I did a battle report? What was the probably the biggest mistake we made?
I don't know. Not taking notes during the
Not
actual
taking
game.
note. Well, that would have been a good idea.
Yeah.
The other thing I noticed was by turn 3 or 4, we forgot to take pictures.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like we were just like, let's get this damn thing over with. It's been 7 hours.
yeah.
Now, I think a very interesting thing to bring up is that if it's a video battle report, people will give you a lot of latitude if the video is not particularly great. But if your audio is bad, they will switch away so quickly. Just so quickly. Bad audio is the death knell of any battle report, I think.
Well, if you want to have the speech that I give every new producer who comes and works for me at Heliconia Press, it goes like this. Audio is actually 70% of what we do. You can think your video is the most beautiful thing in the world, but if you aren't capturing good audio, you're useless to me. Anyway, that is just me speaking like I do. So what is the difference? Like we can also, this is roundtable time. What's the difference between how you handle a cinematic battle report, the over-the-head battle report, and the written battle report? So I don't know if you guys have done many written battle reports, but let's throw it out to you guys first. Tell me a bit about how do you handle these 3 different style of reports differently and some sort of rules of thumb?
All right, well, I'll just throw out there. A cinematic battle report is going to take the longest. It just flat will, because you are getting multiple shots of the same thing and you're actually kind of weaving it all together. So it's just the most time-consuming one, and it also is, in my experience, probably the most appealing to the casual player. The overhead battle reports are, probably mid-range. I would think maybe a written battle report's faster, but I couldn't say for sure. But the overhead one is sort of a lesser degree of effort on the filming side, and it's more focused on the gameplay. So typically a lot of War Machine players will go, oh, well, I learned on the cinematic battle reports, but then I wanted to get competitive and I went to the overhead ones. And so they'll, that's sort of their value difference. And then written battle reports just seem nice if you can't play video and you still want to kind of be involved in what's going on. And then depending on the kind of shots you get, I know written battle reports are what are in the No Quarter, the Privateer Press magazine. They'll do written battle reports, and they kind of do some cool stuff with sort of a before and after shot, and you can see where the model's moved. And so that ends up being kind of useful from a overarching strategy kind of standpoint. So you're getting different things out of them. Is that the question?
Yeah, that was a great answer.
Yeah, and there's different kinds of cinematic battle reports too. There's something like Dave from Mini Wargaming. He doesn't even care about the rules. I don't even know if he knows half the rules half the time. But
that's a banter battle report. That's a 4th kind.
Yeah. So there's the banter cinematic battle report of you're there to film the players more than the actual experience. Or the experience more than the actual game. And so it's all about having fun, getting together just as a community, as some friends, and playing this game we all love. And almost everyone can connect with that. And that's why those kind of battle reports are successful. Miranda's cinematic battle report is well, it's just a beautiful video about the game we love. And yeah, it's just awesome. And so yeah, you're gonna watch that. The overhead, you can play on the Deathclock, you can play at the most competitive level. There's very little commitment from the players, doesn't slow down the game at all. And then the written is just kind of like that. It requires nothing but your memory. And so any game anywhere can become a written battle report. So you can just get lots of volume and just kind of like a database of battle reports if you just need to get that information out. And it doesn't require a lot of commitment. It doesn't require really any knowledge of any camera or audio or any of that stuff that you need. You just need to have some decent kind of memory and write a few words down.
I think one of the things that separates the cinematic battle report from everything else is, and I think you've mentioned it a couple times, is it's the beginning player, and we talked about it right at the beginning of the show. It's the first one that appeals to us. And one of the things I think that's really important that I wanted to mention, and we could talk about this more, is cinematic battle reports have a really important place in getting new players and players and old players excited about the game again. And the cinematic shouldn't just be put aside. That is actually the most important thing. You talk about this when you're teaching new players how to play, George, about getting them excited by making a scene in their head so that they see the battle happening on the field, and that's really important in those cinematic battle reports as well. And I think that's something that you guys do extremely well, is create that excitement of a moment and create these characters and take on the character of the warcaster to a certain degree, et cetera, et cetera. How do we find that maybe in our written battle reports and in that element, or do we need it in those, George?
Well, I think in a written battle report, I would say that there are cinematic written battle reports and that there are strategic written battle reports. The ones that you often see with the pictures are what I would call a strategic battle report. So it often comes down to, I moved these guys across from these guys to set up this type of attack, and then I tried to do a spell assassination by moving up this arc node into this position and then cast this spell so that this guy over here could come in later and do this damage. The other type, and this is maybe the rarest of the battle reports, is the cinematic written battle reports. And I've maybe seen 10 of these in my entire career as a wargamer, but they are written as a narrative story. So almost what you would see in one of the Skull Island Expeditions books. So when somebody feats in the battle report, it's not written as, so then I popped my feet. It's, a crashing wave of energy emanated from Denegra and all of the enemies slowed to a crawl as her beasts were able to rip, a juggernaut limb from limb or something like that. Like that type.
And then right underneath, so I rolled 3 6s and a 5.
I tripped stick 6 that head. It was freaking amazing. No, but I think that
has a place.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely does. And to be honest, when I am, at work and I'm trying to give my brain a rest, that is the perfect thing, because I don't have to concentrate on video and audio. I don't have to do anything like that. I can read this basically 4 paragraphs or 5 paragraphs that tell the entire story of a game really quickly. And I wish they were more common, but I know why they aren't, because you have to be a good writer and a decent wargamer and have a good memory for what happened during the game. And to get those 3 in the same place is really hard.
All right, so chugging right along.
You also kind of have to care about the theme and the lore and the story of War Machine, and there's a ton of players I've met who just play the game and have no interest in the lore.
Blue tack with a head on the space, is that?
Hey, that's you need 50% of the model now.
So the last thing, I just, because we need to chug along because we got a lot of other things I want to talk about tonight, and we're going to talk about some of this again in the recording the details of your game segment. How long? And I think we should just all go around and give our opinions. How long should a battle report be?
Ooh. A video or
let's stick with video because
stick with video, yeah,
because a written one can be whatever. Really,
yeah.
It depends on how many rounds it goes, I think, or anything else. But let's start with Miranda. What's your opinion? How long should you make your battle report?
Like the final cut? How long?
Yeah, how long?
I wouldn't go over 30 minutes.
Good to know, Dan.
Because,
oh, sorry, Miranda. Finish your thought.
well, I mean, I've had longer games and they've done really well, but I noticed that a lot of people will watch them on like their lunch hour or on breaks or when they have time, and so it's a long commitment to have more than that. So that's why I would say 30 minutes to 40 minutes maybe.
Dan, how do you feel about the time?
Miranda mostly plays small games, but when you start playing like the larger games, 50 points or like 2,000 points to 40K, I'll say 45 minutes, because even though most of them are about an hour, like you should be able, like 45 minutes is kind of like that you can get a big full game in and get all the details in and like cut it. And once you start dragging on like that, it just, there are people who watch it, but most people want a nice, concise, just like a breather, get home, relax from work, kind of listen to. And I mean, there's audience for longest is what you want to make, but I think 45 minutes is that sweet spot.
Jason?
Big games.
Jason, how do you feel?
I think it depends for me on what I'm watching. If it's a battle report of a particular caster that I'm curious about or interested in playing, I don't mind an hour to 2 hours for a battle report, like basically just an unedited game. But if I'm just sitting down and I want to watch a battle report, I think half hour is my max attention span.
G, you've done enough video battle report type of stuff in your time. What do you believe is the sweet spot?
As a War Machine streamer, the correct answer is however long their clock was. As a personal thing, I think an hour. I think a tournament game double speeded with some kind of audio over top from a tournament, like from a high-end player point of view, I think is a good time limit. For a cinematic or a well-cut video, I kind of like the half an hour to 45 minutes.
Yep.
I think that's good.
I'm 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Oh my God.
So you're the audience I have that you can see, because you can see on the YouTube analytics like where people watch
Where they
your
drop
videos.
off? Yeah.
So there's always a strong start, then it dips, and then like the last 2 minutes, just right back up.
Where they all skip. What you need to do is 10 minutes in, put in a tag that says, to find out how this turned out, click here.
That's kind of how our
I edited it like Pulp Fiction, so if you want to see the end, have fun.
That's kind of how our podcasts go now. If you don't want to listen to CID talk, just skip to an hour 30.
Yeah.
So last but not least, let's talk about matchups. Because I think this is probably the thing that gels Battle Report the most, is choosing your matchup so that it is something that people will want to watch or read or listen to or however you want to do it. So let's start with, we'll switch it up a bit. Jason, you're going first because your mouth is full of booze right now. If you're going to set up a battle report, how do you think your matchup should be? Should it just be like the top two casters? What's the deal? Like how do you...
No, I don't think it should just be the top two casters. I think it should just be something that's going to be not completely one-sided. A nice roundabout, like, that unit has a really good chance of taking out that unit, but they also have a good chance. Like something that's well-rounded, and you're not just going to look at one side and be like, oh, that side's totally going to kick that other side's ass.
But
so not you versus Tim Banky.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay, but that does remove the how does this guy win battle report?
Not necessarily.
Well, like, I mean, if you have one where you have one person that's massively sort of the underdog, you never have the underdog pulling it out. If you just have
but
two...
how often does the underdog actually pull
I'm
it
just
out?
saying, dramatically, that's the way to go.
So, G, what do you think should be the way that you like? How do you do your pairings?
The correct answer is whatever my opponent wants to play, because people having fun with the warcasters they're playing is the people who will be the most excited about what's on the table.
Oh, sure. He brings out the integrity answer. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll take whatever you want to play as long as I have a week to come up with a list that's going to annoy.
I only play one list now. You should be able to figure that out.
Dan, how do you figure out your matchups? What's your rule of thumb?
I don't know. Whatever I want to play that day. It's like, I would try to have some variety, right? I don't want to play the same thing over and over again. But it's I am infamous for you show it to a battle report, you kind of half see their list, and I open up my bag and create a list on the spot that I think will be fun to play against.
Cool.
Miranda, how much time do you? What do you do for matchups?
Well, for me, I just sort of pit the faction, and so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'd really like my next battle report to be like, well, I am only ever going to play Kador, but like Kador versus Crix or versus Circle or someone, and so then I just let the other player sort of build whatever he or she wants, and I kind of, my typical list style tries to encompass being a very all-comers kind of list. So it's not like too much of an exact science, and it
I
really
do have a story.
Oh.
One time she was about to film a battle report. She's like, I've never played against this faction very much, and this player's a good player, but I want to crush him. What should I bring? She's like, give me advice. Like, what is this model good? Is this what does this faction usually bring? And I was like, all right. You'll probably want to bring this, maybe this, and it's just like, however you try. I don't even think she followed any of my advice, but but like. As much as we say we want to have fun, we're also competitive players.
Yeah.
That's why we enjoy playing the game.
You don't want to just roll over and
part
take
of
a
the
kicking.
fun is winning, so.
All right.
Pretend.
All right, G, we got 10 minutes to do a little bit of the click on the button that makes the thing say.
The lightning round.
It's all right. We'll skip focus tonight.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna have to be more exact if you want that.
Oh,
Normally we say 10 minutes at the end.
Ever
That's
since
where-
we took Jason off of the computer.
That's right. We take Jason away from the computer. We put on the hack.
I was told that I was now on computer duty.
Only because you yelled at all of us for doing it wrong.
It's true.
We got. Well, let's take 5 minutes before we move into the lightning round.
Okay, I gotta go hit the focus
Hit the
button now.
other button.
Yeah, I know one of the questions, and I don't know that we got it necessarily, was how you record the details of your game.
That's what we're going to talk about now, is how to record the details of your game. So let's start with Miranda. It sounds like you have an answer already set up. So what do you guys do to get that details down?
It's the easiest part. Whenever I'm rolling, I'm like, okay, tell me what you're doing as you do it.
Go.
Okay, great. Because then I just watch it later. I'm like, and this happened, and it's just actually narrated with the video.
Oh, so
That's
that
perfect.
makes it a lot easier with video.
It really does.
We've been doing it wrong.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I think that was a given.
Oh,
Yeah.
Dan, you do anything special to record the details?
When I first started making battle reports, like when I just had no idea what other people's models did at all, and I was just like, so I would like write down like their spells and like different abilities that I wasn't familiar with just on a piece of paper, and it wouldn't be in a particular order, but it would just, I have a half decent memory at least. I'm lucky that way, kind of. But anyway, so it was kind of refresh me. But if I'm ever gonna do a voiceover, then yeah, you just talk into the camera and explain everything that's happening as it's happening, or your opponent is, and that makes it super easy, like Miranda does it. Or I mean, you just announce it. You're like, wait, you're doing what move? Doing what? Okay, let's do that now. And then you say, and like, this guy's doing this. So video isn't terribly complicated to keep the details in. You just narrate it as you go.
Well, I think Jason and I've come up with a good method, which is we do our battle report the very like as soon as we can. The very next, it's usually like the next day.
Yeah, by then I've pretty much forgotten everything.
I have to remind you. That was the best, and you're like, "What happened? Turn 3."
Yeah, tell me.
You
Tell me,
you moved up your crap, and you stomped in my face. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, so I'll write that.
But one of the things that we do is we take turns. So one of us writes down what they remember from the game. So you do your turn basically. I write down my turn, what I did, what I think I did during my turn, and then the other guy does that, and then we kind of verify what the other guy wrote. Really? We should be taking notes during our game, but that's.
But I just thought of that like 20 minutes ago. So.
Yeah.
So I'll chime in with what somebody else does that I really think we should start doing is what Chain Attack does. They have two people playing and one person literally taking notes.
No, that would be good.
That would be really like
That would require 3 of us to be in a room other than a Thursday or other than a Wednesday night. Though. I wanted to
Wow.
I suppose it would be fair to ask, like, whenever you're looking at battle reports, is how big is your team? Because if it's like you and one other person, then yeah, you've got to streamline. But if you've got people and they're all like, this awesome gaming club and real friends and things like that I'm jealous of, then you can have people who are taking notes and doing all the extra stuff and maybe have a cleaner game. Or you could just narrate it like Matt used to do on Mini Wargaming, just after the fact, and just make it up as you go.
Fair enough.
Yep.
All right. We did have one more audience question that before we go into the lightning round, I did want to pass on to Miranda because he was excited to be able to ask this question. Dan asks, as a father of 2 young daughters, I hope I'll partake in wargaming nerd culture as they grow up. Where there are any influences in the family or social-wise that led you to your enjoyment of wargaming. Any advice you could offer to nudge them into the hobby, but not in a way that would cause them to dislike it?
Oh, man.
No pressure.
So Well, no, it's just sort of a hard question because you're like, well, my daughter's still small and listens to me before she like grows up into this world of like everybody wanting her attention.
Yeah.
And so it's like most people I know are men, but most like of the girls that I've met who have ever been interested in wargaming got into it in their adult life because they knew a guy who got them into it because that's just, statistically how it's going to happen. So from like a father perspective, I would just say even more importantly than just showing them or making them interested in like, oh, these cool models that you can paint and play around with would just be kind of trying your best to foster an interest in being competitive and not being intimidated by rules. Because I ask that question a lot of like, hey, dude's girlfriend, like, you're watching this. Is this at all interesting to you? And so many of them are like, oh no, I can't do those rules. I was like, well, where does that come from? Because it feels like that's more of the thing you need to address first. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's just, girls aren't pushed into the same things growing up typically. And so if you just sort of foster that, like, no, this is really cool and you can be good at things and, oh gosh, teach them how to lose because that's really important, then you will probably just develop somebody more well-adjusted who then won't be intimidated by all these other things that, people around them do, like the nerd culture-y stuff that, that has a competitive element. So that would be I've been thinking about that question all day, and it's a really complex one because, you're not the only one who gets to raise your daughter. She also gets raised by a bunch of other people, and just don't, like, vehemently keep people from telling them, like, it's a boyish hobby or stupid stuff that will later affect them to think, oh, well, I don't have to do this, so...
I think that's the best answer we could possibly have asked for. So I appreciate that, and thank you for taking the time to think about that because that's important too. Now, George, you can hit the button you wanted to hit before.
The lightning round.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the lightning round. 10 of the most difficult questions in all of Warmahordes. Or at least ones I thought up about 10 minutes ago while I had. So this is the first time that you guys have played the lightning round. So know that it's highly competitive. There's people around the world who really don't give a damn about the points of this thing or anything along those lines.
There are people in their car right now going, "Oh yes, it's a lightning round. I can beat all of you buggers before we get to the tournament."
And it's true. So the way that it works is because you guys are on Skype and because sometimes there's a bit of delay. If you know the answer, raise your hand and make a buzzing sound. So these guys don't have to raise their hand, but imagine it'd be like, meh, that's what normally...
Or Bubba goes, ding dong.
You can come up with your own sound. That's cool by me. And I will ask the questions, and then I will define whether you got them right, and most of the time I'll be the one that's wrong. So, question number 1 is, my feet is winter's chill. Who am I?
Buzz? Is it Sorsha?
It is Sorsha. 1 point to Miranda. Question number 2. Who is Black Ivan bonded to?
Buzz Harkovich.
It is Harkovich. 2 points for Miranda. You guys are terrible at this game.
I knew he had a jack.
Keep the caterer questions coming.
Question number 3. How many grunts in a min unit of battle mechanics? George.
4.
No, that's a max unit. Min unit is 2.
It's actually 3.
3 grunts?
Min unit, because 4... Hold on. Miranda was technically...
And 3 grunts, right?
Because it's a leader and 3 grunts. So it's actually 3.
So, just so you guys know, I've been playing one battle mechanic down for a month.
Oh, it's because that's what you needed is more models on the table.
Yay, more models. I've got 7 jacks. It's not like I have points for anything else.
Question number 4. What does the benefit Tactics Duelist provide? What benefits does Tactic Duelist... Sorry. Go, Miranda.
You gain +2 defense against melee attacks.
Correct.
Wow.
Question number 5. What is Midas's feat called?
I know this.
I will give you one. I'll give you one hint. It's inspired by a horror novel.
It's like Boneyard or something?
It's Pet Cemetery. Pet Cemetery was the
Oh
answer.
no!
I knew that.
I didn't know that. That's
I was
awesome.
gonna say Lawnmower Man.
Question number 6. What does a Gatorman Boker's Hand of Glory do? Don't even go there.
Okay.
Dan,
Wait, why can't it makes it stationary?
that is correct. Makes stationary for 1 round.
Wow, awesome.
Oh, I better get the minty fresh
That
question
is
ready.
way better than what I thought it did.
Keep everybody distracted
Ooh.
while I find the minty fresh question. Oh, damn it.
Minty's listening. You better not fuck
I
this
know.
up.
Minty's listening. Hold on. I got to find it.
Don't fuck this up.
I usually have this all like set up and ready.
Minty, more terrain.
There it is. There it
They
is.
need more terrain.
All right, there we go. Question number 7. Who was Linus and Edria's teacher? George.
Not Pendrake. The guy who wrote the Monsternomicon.
You were correct, actually.
It is
It's
Pendrake?
Victor Pendrake.
Oh,
I was going to let you just suffer for a while.
I
though.
should have just gone with it.
All right, question number 8. What is Rorsch's beast's name? Dan.
Brian.
It's Brian. Question
See,
number
I knew that, but I thought I was wrong.
That's what I thought too.
Question number 9. Who will Alexia 1 work for? Wargamergirl.
Kador. I know Kador. Do I have to name all of them?
Yep.
Kador and Signar and
Just
I
leave
don't
it
think any
there.
of the others.
That's it. You got it. It's Kador and Signar.
Really? She doesn't work for Crix? I guess
No, she
Crix
won't
would
because she stole their she stole their
she
soul
would-
blade or something. The Witchfire.
The
I believe
Witchfire,
she stole.
Anything to do with Crix.
All right. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for the minty fresh question of the week, the hardest, most ridiculously hard question ever invented. Question. This disease was partially responsible for the eradication of the occupying Orgoth forces in the 1st century AR. What is its name?
1 sec while I don't Google this.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the Black Sickness.
The Black Sickness is incorrect. Jason, do you have a guess?
No.
No, again. No is not the correct answer. Going over to Miranda, do you have a guess?
The plague. I don't know.
No, the plague is incorrect. Dan, did I give you enough time
To Google it.
To Google it.
No, I didn't actually. I just. I would guess Kador Phil.
Kador Phil.
That is completely correct. No, I'm just kidding. It's Riplung was the name of the disease.
Riplung.
Oh, guess what? There's a follow-up question. It was cured by which Morrowind Arcanist who would become an Ascendant as a result?
Is it which Morrowind who became an Ascendant? Oh yeah, I have no idea.
Anybody?
It wasn't Morrow, was it?
No, it's Corbin. It was
Oh,
Corbin.
okay.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I was going to say, I don't know if
That-
Morrow counts as a Morrowind.
I think Minty went above and beyond.
That was
that was a good one.
amazing.
That was,
Actually, somebody on the chat actually got Riplung.
oh, there you go.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Was it Minty?
No.
Oh, okay.
I knew the answer.
I'm just
going
gonna say that guy wins.
Wins the chat?
version of Lightning Round though, because
There you go. Who was it? Who was it?
It was Remger.
Oh, yeah, I love.
Remmer.
I think everybody
Remmer?
needs like simpler Twitch names.
Yeah.
All right, we got some upkeep to do before we go this evening. So before we go, I want to make sure that Fraser gets his due. What do we got coming up from Fraser over there?
Fraser has Troll Blood Scrum coming up in an hour.
Sweet. So stay tuned to the Moose Machine
You're
Network.
damn
or
right.
Go check out the Def Head Dice Twitch channel.
Yep.
And please remember to use your battle reporter because we need all dem sweet statistics.
And if you want to be a podcaster, there's something coming up.
Yeah, if you've ever dreamed of having all of this
No, this is really good. You should really do this.
rolling around in all of those podcasting dollars.
Am I being fired?
We weren't going to tell him.
Quiet, Jason. It'll be okay. Yeah. So
No more tears.
Fraser has
No more
Fraser
tears.
is teasing a little contest that is coming up. To there will be an opportunity for somebody out there, for some lucky person to become a podcaster. So keep your eyes peeled. There may be some more details tonight on Troll Blood Scrum.
Yeah.
George, are there any cool local events happening in your area you want to promote?
We are having Summer Rampage. There's a grand reopening of one of the stores in town, Out of the Box Cards and Collectibles, and they're moving to a new, much bigger location where we will be able to have real tournaments, which is amazing. And we are going to run Summer Rampage. It's the first event kit from Privateer Press after the switch over from the PG system. So if you show up, I can say that you will probably be going home with one of the brand new crippled system or crippled aspect tokens.
Ooh, that's pretty sweet. Dan, you got any cool events you want to talk about going on or new things you're working on?
I just bought back into 40K, and so I'm gonna make some 40K battle reports and yell around, or just yell a lot with orcs.
That sounds
so,
cool.
That'll make some people happy.
Excellent. And Miranda, do you have anything you want to talk about?
Space Marine games coming up, the board game, and Shadow War Armageddon, and probably War Machine, yes.
All right, so make sure
Excellent.
this is an important thing. In order to make sure that these things all keep happening, everybody needs to keep subscribing to these channels, checking out everybody's YouTube pages, downloading people's podcasts. So these are the people that inspired us to do what we do. We wouldn't be around without these guys, so please take a second and go subscribe to their channels. They do amazing work.
If I remember, all the links will be down in the doobly-doo.
Yeah, the doobly-dook. All of them, maybe, if we remember. Things I got to mention. Little upkeep. I was at the Wizards Tower this week. Got some
You
models.
didn't tell me you were going.
Well, sometimes I do things without you now.
I need a new can of white primer because I was using it the other day, and the nozzle just decided to stay going.
Oh.
And now all of you
So you painted a wall?
Yeah, I painted a wall, some of myself.
good.
You just did the witness me.
Yeah. Totally went Warboy there for a minute.
Wizards Tower has everything you need. If you are in Canada, they're a great place to order from. And remember that they are a local friendly gaming store. They're not some conglomerate trying to just make a buck off of what is popular. Go check them out. You can learn more about them at Wizards Tower.
Also, if you're in America, our dollar sucks. So
so you can get models for free, basically.
And if you're a Magic player, the new Commander anthology is out, and it is amazing.
And last but not least, we got to thank our guys over at Muse on Minis for making sure that the lights are on and make sure that that this podcast actually gets out to the world. Because if it weren't for you guys, we'd still only have 10 people listening.
Yep, and big shout out to John on the Voice for sending that stuff out to James and his school, because as much as we love getting awesome swag from Muse on Minis, I think those people will be putting it to much better use.
Yep. So last week Muse sent a whole big box of fancy goodies out to James Craig's school, who has the little wargaming club that they've been personally supporting, that James basically has been paying for.
It's just been running.
And, so it's awesome that they're doing things like that, and supporting the community is what we're all about. Okay, everybody, that is it for the bookkeeping. Thank you for tuning in tonight, and dice down.
Dice down! Moose Machine and This Deathclock Has 60 Minutes is a proud part of the Muse on Minis network. Podcasts go online every Thursday morning. You can watch the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch, and keep in touch with us on our Facebook page. Just Google Moose Machine. If you can't find us, you're doing the internet wrong.
Alrighty, we're clear. Thank you very much.
I love having